Hello, my name is Lewis and welcome to day one of Decktober. For the entirety of October, we're releasing a budget brewed deck tech every day, with today being all about me, Master Steve's favourite elemental avatar, Muldrotha the Gravetide. Muldrotha is a 6/6 that costs 3 and Sultai that says during each of your turns you may play one permanent card of each permanent type from your graveyard. This extreme $30 budget deck tech is all about milling millions of cards into your graveyard, having plenty of different permanent types to bring back and quickly wipe down your opponent's board state and life total for the very quick victory royale. Now let's get right into the deck tech. As always, we're starting off hot with the ramp. First off here we have Llanowar Elves to tap for a forest and Root Coil Creeper to tap and add a mana of any colour, or tap to add 2 mana of any colour but only to cast things from your graveyard. This new card is such a key cog for Muldrotha, as most of what we'll be spending our mana on is getting those cards out of the graveyard. For more rampy creatures we have Skull Prophet to add black or green, or that ability to tap and mill us 2 cards, again a perfect fit for old Muldy. We have some Commander classics in Solemn Simulacrum to get us some land and also some card draw when it dies, and Cultivate to fetch us 2 basic land cards. Next we have Growth Spiral, the instant version of Solemn Simulacrum to again ramp and draw a card, and Harrow where you sack a land to get 2 lands onto your side of the field. Sacking lands is never a bad strategy with Muldrotha, as you can always get them back from your graveyard on each of your turns if you require. And finally, to finish off our rampy section, we have Sol Ring. Because Sol Ring. Before we get into our milling madness, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe for all things MTG. It's completely free to do, it helps the channel grow and grow as we head towards 2,000 subscribers. Before we get onto all of our evil ETB creatures, we're going to look at all of our milling madness. The more things we have in our graveyard with Muldrotha, the more options at our disposal and the easier it'll be to get the win. Starting out we have Eye Collector, a 1-drop flyer that when it deals combat damage to a player, each player puts the top card of their library in their graveyard. And Forgotten Creation that at the beginning of your upkeep lets you discard your hand and redraw that many cards. We have Mindrack Harpy to mill each player 3 cards at the beginning of your combat, and Mirror Mad Phantasm that you can pay to shuffle into your library. You then draw cards until you draw Mirror Mad Phantasm again, putting it on the battlefield and all other cards you've drawn that way into your graveyard. This is hands down one of the best cards in the deck, as it could potentially mill most of your deck and get all those key cards in the graveyard, just as Lord Muldrotha likes it. For more milling creatures we have Nyx Weaver to mill 2 at the beginning of your upkeep, and Sidisi Brood Tyrant to not only mill 3 cards when it hits the field and attacks, but also whenever one or more of your creatures hits the graveyard from your library, you get to start making that zombie army. There is Stinkweed Imp that very importantly has that dredge mechanic to allow you to mill 5 cards and return it to your hand, and Sir Conrad the Grim that pings each opponent for 1 every time a creature dies, or is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or if a creature leaves the battlefield. Imagine triggering this off with a big Mirror Mad Phantasm play. You could be pinging your opponents for lethal without even lifting a finger. We have some more key cogs in Splinter Fright, an elemental with trample that's power and toughness are equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard with that added milling ability too. And there is Consuming Aberration, whose power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in your opponent's graveyard, and whenever you cast a spell, each opponent mills until they hit a land card, then putting all of those cards in the graveyard. The most deadly combo in all of this deck is getting this out with Jarad Golgari Lich Lord. With all of the monster milling in the deck, Consuming Aberration will be so strong. You can sack it with Jarad, draining each opponent for a crazy amount of life, then use Muldrotha's ability to bring back Consuming Aberration and do it all over again. A disgusting combo. We have Multani Yavimai's avatar that gets +1/+1 for each land you control and each land in your graveyard, a Night Howler, an enchantment creature you can bestow and give itself an enchanted creature +X/+X, where X is the number of creatures in all graveyards. For the last 5 bits of milling madness, we have Relentless Pursuit to reveal 4 cards, put a land or creature on the field and then graveyard the rest, and Fact or Fiction to get some cards in your hand and some cards in the graveyard. There is Perpetual Timepiece to tap and mill 2, and the Mending of Dominaria to mill 2 cards twice, get some creature recursion, and finally get all of your lands from your graveyard to the battlefield. And we have Sultai Ascendancy to mill 2 at the beginning of your upkeep. Now we've looked at all those ways to get those cards in the graveyard, we're going to look at those ETB creatures that we can bring out over and over again. First, we have some enter the battlefield rampy creatures in Coiling Oracle to get you a chance of putting a land onto the field, and Springbloom Druid, similar to that Harrow card earlier, sacking a land on ETB to then get you out 2 lands that enter tapped. Next, we have Satyr Wayfinder to reveal the top 4 cards of your library, put a land on the field and the rest in your graveyard. It's like these cards were literally made for Muldrotha. There is also Baleful Strix, a flying death touch bird that ETBs and draws you a card. For more card drawing creatures, we have Muldrotha to draw you 2 cards, but make sure you always evoke it so it goes to the graveyard and you can use it over and over again. And there is Obsessive Stitcher to draw you a card, discard a card, and you can pay to sack it and get some good old recursion in your life and bring a creature from the graveyard to the field. The next bulk of ETB creatures are all about that destruction. First, we have Acidic Slime, the Death Touch ooze that can destroy target artifact, enchantment or land, and Demon's Disciple that when ETBs, each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. Again, sacking a creature on your side of the board is never a problem with Muldrotha, as anything that you destroy goes straight to the graveyard and you can bring it back before you know it. Next up is Foundation Breaker, which ETBs and destroys target artifact or enchantment. Again, very useful with that evoke mechanic. There is also Merciless Executioner, another enter the battlefield and every player sacks a creature card. There are 2 more removal loving creatures, the first being Plaguecrafter that enters the battlefield and makes each player sacrifice a creature or planeswalker, with those who can't having to discard a card. And Shriekmaw, another evoke casting creature that ETBs and destroys target non-artifact, non-black creature. For the last 2 ETB creatures, we have Archaeomancer that ETBs and allows you to return target instant or sorcery from the graveyard to your hand, and Timeless Witness that ETBs and allows you to return target card from your graveyard to your hand. That is some lovely recursion royalty right there. Before we get to the lands, we're looking at the removal, recursion and the best of the rest in this deck. First of all, we have Tormod the Desecrator that will create you a tapped 2/2 zombie every time you get a card out of your graveyard, and Sporefrog that you can sacrifice to prevent all combat damage. Next, we have some Planeswalkers in Obnixilis Reignited and Vraska the Unseen to use as some tasty removal and have as an extra permanent type that you can bring back with Muldrotha. We then have Wonder and Brawn that, if they are in your graveyard, will give all of your creatures flying and trample respectively. Next up, we have Malevolent Hermit and Siren Stormtamer, 2 creatures that we can hold up as sacrificial counterspells and then bring them back after, thanks to Muldrotha. Oops. For some removal spells, we have Sinister Concoction, a 1-drop black that helpfully mills you to cast it and destroys a target creature. And Gaze of Granite, because who doesn't love a tasty Golgari board wipe? We have Seal of Doom and Seal of Primordium to destroy target non-black creature and some more artifact or enchantment removal. On some recursion now, we have Seal of Removal to return target creature to owner's hand, and Aether Spellbomb to again return a creature to owner's hand or draw you a card. There is Codex Shredder to mill a card or return target card from your graveyard to your hand, and Kaya's Ghost Form to keep bringing them creatures back to the graveyard, because for a 1-drop black we can just keep bringing that card back with Muldrotha. We have another board wipe option in Nev's Disc, and there is Kenrith's Transformation to draw you a card and make some of your pesky enemy creatures lose their abilities. For the last 3 cards, we have Binding of the Old Gods for some removal and ramp, and another Saga in the Eldest Reborn for some removal and tasty recursion. Finally, we have Secrets of the Dead to draw you a card every time you cast something from your graveyard. For our last section, we have all of those precious lands, starting off with 9 Island, 9 Swamp and 9 Forest. We also have Commander Staples in Command Tower, an Opulent Palace to get you that nice Sultai spread. We have some more Commander Staple lands with Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse to sack and look for some basic land. We have Dismal Backwater and Jungle Hollow to spread that mana pool and gain life, with the same going for that Simicky land, Thornwood Falls. And finally, we have Lonely Sandbar that we can also cycle, which our good pal Muldrotha loves us to do. Muldrotha is an extremely powerful commander option and rightfully one of the most popular commanders in the whole of Magic the Gathering. And make sure to keep your eyes peeled for Decktober Day 2 tomorrow, where we'll be looking at one of the most exciting commander options from the newest set, Innistrad Midnight Hunt. Let's just hope now that Muldrotha's had its own deck tech, Steve will finally stop mentioning it in the comments section of every one of my videos. There we have it, that is the $30 budget deck tech. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe for all things MTG. Check out our link tree in the description below for all of our social media and affiliate links, but for now, I'm all tapped out. So I'll see you in the next video.